Everybody, we're back with week 12 of Battle of the Shorts. Can you believe it? We are almost halfway through. And if you're new here, we battle 4 short stories each week from vintage science fiction and fantasy. And every morning on Saturday at 9 a.m. Central Time, I go through and discuss each of these short stories. So subscribe, tune in every week if you want to see who's going to win the Battle of the Shorts. This week we had a few authors I had not read before, which is always an exciting experience. That's kind of why I'm doing this. But before we kick off, I want to do this week's shout out. I do a shout out each week just so you can find other cool booktubers in this area of YouTube. Go follow Masked Manta. I have a hard time saying that. Masked Manta. I have recently started watching his videos. Great YouTuber. He has a really cool series he's doing of, I believe, David Pringle's top 100 fantasies. It might be David Pringle, is it? I think it is. I have the book right up there. Anyway, he's doing a really cool series. So in the description below, you can go find his information. Go give him a subscribe. Week 12. Let's see what we're working with this week. We have John Varley's Retrograde Summer going up against Brian M. Stableford's The Sun's Tears. I think that's what it was called. Yep, The Sun's Tears. And then our second matchup features Philip José Farmer with After King Kong Fell versus R.A. Lafferty's Eurema's Dam. So that's the bracket. I'm going to pull it back up here one more time really quick. As you can see, we have tons and tons of great authors that have moved on to, I guess, the second round or the final round, where at the very end of this series in week 26, I'm going to name a bronze, silver, and gold and figure out who is the winner of the Battle of the Shorts. So stay tuned. Lots of great authors to go, and let's figure out who wins week 12. Starting off, we're going to go with what I think is so far the short story title of the tournament, if you will, with John Varley's Retrograde Summer in the Best Science Fiction of the Year, number 5, edited by Mr. Terry Carr. I would say that most of the Terry Carr anthologies that I have, these Best of Science Fictions, are winners. So if you find some of these, pick them up. They are awesome and chock full of great stuff. All right. Retrograde Summer is, I believe, was the longest story this week. It was published in 1975, and it was it was nominated for a 1976 Nebula. We follow a man named Timmy. He lives on Mercury, and he is awaiting the arrival of his clone twin sister, Jubilant. And Timmy lives with his mother, who he believes to be his biological mother, named Dolores. I think it's Dolores. And Jubilant, his clone twin sister, as I said, has kind of a long time ago had divorced her adopted mom or dad, adopted parent, and she's coming to Mercury to seemingly live with them and study and I think become it was a environmental engineer. Anyway, they get together as kind of long lost siblings and sort of have this romp through Mercury. Nah, romp's not the right word. They're siblings, so that would be weird. But they have this kind of they go along and see different parts of Mercury as he introduces them to his sister, who's never been there before. And there's some really cool world building, really cool relationship building, where he's having some kind of deep conversations with his clone sister about their family and their past and things like that. And there's a couple of really awesome scenes, just badass scenes. One of them being they swim in a lake of quicksilver. That is just really cool visually. It's described really well. Varley has pretty good prose, I would say well above average. And I need to make a note. At the beginning of the write-up of this story, Terry Carr introduces Varley as kind of a younger, up-and-coming author, but one who will remind of Heinlein potentially, because Varley was a big Heinlein guy, and that kind of, I didn't really want it to, but it kind of put me off a little bit because I'm not a huge Heinlein guy. I haven't read very much of him, but from what I have read, not been a fan. It's just not my brand, not my flavor. And he was very obtuse and annoying when I read him. And I was a little bit worried that Varley would come across that way just because of his comparison to Heinlein. He did not, no worries there. At least I didn't think so. I thought he was really well written. And the story itself has a softness to it that I felt was very intriguing and interesting, and heartwarming even. And so the main like plot revolves around the family's history and the past of the cloning of Jubilant and the parents' relationship, because in this society, one person, one child. You can't have any more than that. It's strictly forbidden. And so the parents essentially worked around that law and found a loophole, and that's how him and his sister were cloned. And there's also sex changes that happened to kind of get around that loophole, which I thought was really interesting for a 1970s novel or novella. And yeah, I just was pleasantly surprised. I hadn't read Varley. I don't really think I have much of Varley in my library right now, but he will be read again, and I was impressed. So Retrograde Summer, along with being a sick title, gets a 7 from me, just a flat 7. I thought it was above average and an enjoyable story that was worth my time. So Retrograde Summer by Varley went up against against Brian M. Stableford's The Sun's Tears, which I read in 1975, World's Best SF, edited by Walheim. Love that giant frog cover guy. I had not read Stableford either, and I have a lot of Stableford. I don't think you can probably see him from here, but this whole section of Dawes down here is just Stableford's. So he is in my library and just has been waiting to be tried out. And I tried him with, like I said, The Sun's Tears, published in 1974. I don't believe it got nominated or won any awards, but it was also very good, just like Varley. We follow a mechanical man, or what we're led to believe as a robot, who, his name is Colfax, and he kind of has this, ship that there's this kind of like overarching theme in the novel, I always say novel, in the short story of like finding your place in the stars, and that Earthmen, or specifically Earthmen, are trying to find like the perfect planet. They believe it's out there in this infinite galaxy, and so they can find it. So they search and search. Most men never find it. It's that kind of theme that's set up throughout. It's like a through line through the whole thing. And Colfax is just on this mission to do so. And so he believes that he can't achieve this paradise place without bringing somebody with him. So he goes after a woman. The writing was a little bit off-putting in the sense that Colfax was like this kind of cold main character, but also he's mechanical, so I think that makes sense for his character. So he's not necessarily like in love with this woman. He sort of finds her on this world, and she's like a blue alien, and he barters with her father for her hand in marriage. And women are kind of bought and sold in this society, I guess, on this specific planet. And so that kind of thing was a little bit dated and a little bit, of the times, but a bunch of this stuff is. And so it's not that I'm overlooking it and acting like that's not something to be discussed, but I'm not going to get off on a tangent on like the morality of a short story written in the 1970s, because it wasn't fair to women. I mean, we all understand like the time period, and we're past that. And so or past that in a lot of writing, I should say. And so anyway, getting back onto it, Colfax barters with the father for this woman's hand in marriage, and then he's going to go find his paradise planet. The dad thinks it's kind of funny that he would challenge him to bring him the sun's tears, which is a rare, extremely rare jewel, near impossible to find or barter for or get. So it's next to impossible that he's going to be able to marry his daughter, and this man's daughter. And so he goes off in search of the sun's tears, and he uses kind of just basic logic to go and find it. And one of the best scene I think in the entire short story was he gets these clues to go off and find this alien who can gift it to him, is what he's told. And some of the alien biology in this, some of the alien just character building of races and things, really cool. Thought it was really impressive, engaging, and not it wasn't cheesy, it wasn't annoying where it's just like every other one. It felt unique, it felt like it was intentional. And he goes off and finds this giant, like, tentacly creature who's just like asleep, doesn't notice him. So finally Colfax gets this creature's attention, and she eats him and transports him to this. Transports is a very loose way to describe this, but to a summer of paradise, if you will. And so I think it's funny that this and Retrograde Summer went up against each other completely by accident. I had no clue. I randomized this entire list of short stories. And so putting these two together, one is like a summer on Mercury, one is like a summer in, this paradise-like place where he farms and he hangs out with the villagers, and it's described as a paradise basically. And so he leaves this, wakes up after a summer on this in this paradise. He has a sun's tear, a gem in his hand. So he goes to trade it, but then he realizes that the entire time that he was the entire point of this endeavor was to get this woman go to find paradise, but he realizes he already found paradise and lost it. So then his life becomes about refinding that place, and he can't. He's unable to find it. And I think this story about essentially realizing that you have it pretty good while you're in it, and trying to not look to the next thing necessarily. There's some of that thematically that I thought was pretty nice. One of the quotes I thought was really, really interesting was, "A man at a different age is a different man." I thought that was a really unique way to describe aging and the experience of changing as a person, as you grow older, as you want different things, as you want, get, and then lose different things. That kind of passage through time sort of. And I thought Stableford's writing was, again, well above average, just like Varley. Both were very strong stories, and both had interesting, themes and messages, which I thought weren't too heavily handed, but were just on that line where you get what they were trying to say. It comes through. I was impressed by both. This also got a 7 out of 10 for me. So unfortunately, we're sitting here with another tie. Retrograde Summer by John Varley gets a 7. The Sun's Tears by Brian M. Stableford also gets a 7. So instead of flipping a coaster like I did, like an idiot in that last video, I am going to just say that Retrograde Summer wins it for me. I thought it was slightly better, and it gets the tiebreaker. I think the name alone just gets the tiebreaker. I know I'm just hyping up the name, but what a cool title. So anyway, I've already probably droned for quite a while. These episodes started as 15-minute edited pieces, and now that I'm trying to get these done every week, I'm finding that the editing, I'm just droning at this point. I talk too much, guys. But I guess that is the point of these videos, is you're just sitting here listening to me talk. So John Varley gets the W. there is the bracket if you would like to see where we are currently at. I think it's in frame. I hope it's in frame. And we'll move on to matchup number 2, where some of you might be a little bit disappointed in this one. Others of you might agree with me. I don't really know. I'm going to try to be objective and not break too many of your hearts, I guess. But PJF, we'll start off with After King Kong Fell, which I read here in Nebula Award Stories 10, edited by James Gunn. There's the book. It's a very tightly bound one, so I was trying not to crack the spine. This was published in 1973. I have read maybe 2 things by PJF. I know one of them was Riders of the Purple Wage, I believe is the title of that one. His famous story, I think from Dangerous Visions, I want to say. And I think that was the first thing I read by PJF. He's known for being very out there, a lot of bodily functions being described, bodily, parts being described, and bodily actions and all this kind of thing. So he really doesn't hold back from what it seems. In some of his other stories, I've heard a little bit about A Feast Unknown, I think is the title. I think that's the title. Anyway, I digress. This is a story about basically the events after Kong fell, if it really happened. So the point of view is from a Mr. Howley. I think it's Mr. Tim Howley. And Howler, sorry. Mr. Tim Howler. And he's telling his granddaughter about King Kong and the events that he witnessed, because he was there when King Kong attacked and fell. And I think if I was more of a King Kong fan, I might like it a little bit more. I think if I was more aware of the cool cameos that briefly appear of Doc Savage and the Shadow, or just Shadow, because I have never read either of those, and I'm just not really into those. And so I think there were things in here that probably really, like, fans of that era, fans of this subject matter, probably would really like. I just didn't. It didn't connect with me. I didn't find myself being very drawn into the story. Philip José Farmer's writing is very quality. Like he's a quality writer, and I think he does a good job of like objectively writing a story. But I think there's a difference between that and like making you feel something, grabbing your attention and holding it. And I don't personally, he didn't really do either of those things for me. And we got this strange like meandering into talking about King Kong's junk, which I thought was really off-putting. Like, I get it. Some of these stories of the time like are very bizarre and have these crazy, I was about to say insertions. That's not the right word when I'm talking about this, but just randomly jumping in with like these absurd, bizarre moments and things that happen. And that's what this was, in my opinion. But it was written very off-putting, where I just was like, that had no bearing on the story, and I thought it was gross. And so there's a difference between things that like matter in the story and that are intended to be like useful to the plot and push the plot along, and things that are just shock value. And I thought, again, like that's what it was to me. And so I hate that I'm just belaboring the point at this point. I was not a big fan of this story. I'm joined by King Kong himself now. He's not very happy with me. And yeah, sorry, King Kong. You're going to fall, because I didn't like this story very much. I'm going to give it a 5. And so for anybody that enjoys good PJF, I hate that I had to do this, but yeah, it wasn't my favorite. In my notes, I said, I'll just read this part. Then there are various explanations for what they did with the body of King Kong and who was at fault. Then we get the weirdest freaking segue into talking about King Kong's you-know-what And then in parentheses, I said, what? Why? PJF is so weird, man. This is so irrelevant and unnecessary. I try to take notes as I'm reading these stories. And so I'm giving my like real-time reactions to these notes and not just like sensationalizing the feelings I had. Like, it's like, I was genuinely like, what is this? And so that really stuck out for me. And just the ending had a little softness to it where we like hear from Mr. Howler that he's like, it wasn't King Kong's fault. He's just an animal. And he's kind of like explaining this to his granddaughter. And I thought that was kind of a sweet moment where he's trying to like say like, you know, he's, there could be the deeper theme of like someone's portrayed as like a bad guy, but it might not actually be their fault. I guess that kind of thing. I thought a little bit about this, but ultimately it sort of left my mind and I was like, I don't really want to read about King Kong's wiener. So we're going to move on. PJF gets a 5 for me for After King Kong Fell. Sorry, PJF lovers. R.A. Lafferty, Eurema's Dream, a 1973 Hugo winner, is next and going up against Philip José Farmer. I think this is already turned into a 30-minute video, so forgive me. I'm going to try to do my best with this story and wrap up so that you're not here for too long. But anyway, Eurema's Dream. I've read Lafferty before. I think only in Pastmaster, which was a bizarre book, but ultimately I found very good. Didn't get it all of it, but I didn't really get all of this short story either. But Lafferty just has this absurd way of telling a story that is enticing, enriching, strange, and ultimately pays off. At least for me, it did. I'm going to start at the end. I'll do a Tarantino here. Well, I'll start at the end and then I'll go back to the beginning. I think this kind of sums up the way this short story made me feel. I said, R.A. Lafferty possesses the inventiveness of Bradbury, the absurdity of Cordwainer Smith, the sharpness of Barry Malzberg, and the unbridled honesty of Joanna Russ. Now, do not hear me wrong. I repeat, do not hear me wrong. He's not better than all of them. He's not, I'm not comparing him to any of them in like one for one. I'm saying bits and pieces of why we love those other 4 writers that I just mentioned. He possesses a certain quality of that I think coming together is why Lafferty is a very interesting and polarizing writer and kind of under-discussed, honestly. In this corner of BookTube, I think that he has his play, but like, I think he's so strange and so honest and so unique that he kind of goes over people's heads. He flies past their radar, and I just thought this was a great story. We follow Albert, who is kind of the last of the dolts. He's written as not smart, and he's written as not being able to do math, read, do much of anything that you can do to like learn, but he's very good at making machines. And so, already you're suspending your disbelief for how can this guy do anything if he can't read, write, do basic arithmetic, blah, 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 blah. It's that way of Lafferty's storytelling where you're just kind of go with it. It's not meant to be like a fully realized human being character. There could be a metaphor in here, I read afterwards some reviews that were people were really upset that they were like trying to poke holes in the story. And I just thought, you like missed the point because you're too worried about realism. And so Albert can't do much, but he can make machines. And so he gets this fame and fortune from building machines, but they keep bullying him for his idiocy, his unable to do basic things, and he's just considered like an idiot. And I think that Lafferty's real theme in this story was trying to enlighten us to realize that like social norms, societal norms, cultural norms are not always they're not always like the end all be all. You don't always have to fit in with the crowd. and in your way of thinking and your way of being. And I think that our society now realizes that to a certain degree. I think that the younger generations, including my own, I guess, I border on Gen Z and millennial. I'm like right square in the middle. So I kind of feel in between. But these generations of people have started to kind of realize that like you can kind of be whoever you want to be. And that is the central theme of this story. Albert sort of, you know, he puts it to him, all these rich bureaucrats and inventors, and he there's a very strange. I'll just tell you this: the story ends very weird and kind of. If I read it right, he wants to exterminate everybody and kill the world, which, not advocating for that. I might have read that ending wrong, but everything up until the ending was kind of this warm, like, you know, be who you are kind of thing. And then Lafferty just takes a hard left turn and is like, he builds a robot. Albert builds a robot called Hunchy, which gives him his ability is having hunches, which I thought was very Bradbury, you know, just the creativity of that and silliness of that. And Hunchy has a hunch that, you know, they should go have some fun and like take out the rich people. So I very odd ending, but it just has this like, it's kind of like, I think I've described a couple of short stories in this series as you just got to experience them. They're not really meant to be read, they're meant to be experienced. And I would include this in that list. Now, it wasn't perfect. Lafferty is strange enough where I think it loses you a little bit if you're not reading too carefully, and sometimes you just have to keep going with it. But he just has an absurdity about him that is really hard to find elsewhere, and I really enjoy that. So, Eurema's Dream. I always say Eurema's Dream. Eurema's Dam gets an 8 out of 10 for me in the Hugo Winners Volume 3, edited by Asimov. So that will handily beat PJF in that matchup. For those of you who like PJF, I would love to hear some other short story recommendations, because I have some more PJF and I think I should read more of him, but this one just didn't do it for me. I was confused by Riders of the Purple Wage, and I would like to read more of him because I do enjoy aspects of his writing. He's kind of absurd like Lafferty in some ways, but it doesn't hit like Lafferty's writing does for me. So, yeah, I'll end it there. That's been week 12. I think we've gone on quite a long time, so appreciate it if you're still here with me. You are the real MVPs. Did I? Oh, please tell me I didn't skip any. I think we're still on track. Let's hope we're still on track. It looks like there's 2 slots down here, and there's only 1 matchup left on this side of the bracket, so I'm really hoping that I didn't mess this up. If I did, it's fine. The committee will be upset with me, but you know. All right, the committee and the network. I realize Greg Bear, I don't know if he's with the network anymore. He appeared last week or the week before, and he's pretty upset that he has not been getting screen time. So we'll see if he returns. It may just be me writing solo from now on, but we have Kurt Vonnegut next week going up against Ray Bradbury. That was completely random. I think that's a crazy matchup because one of those stories has to lose. And then the other one will be C.M. Kornbluth versus A. Merritt. So kind of 2 powerhouses as well as 2 old powerhouses in this world. So anyway, again, thank you for following along. I appreciate you. Go give a subscribe to Masked Manta below. He's in this description. And stay tuned for next week. Tune in Saturday mornings, 9 a.m. Central Time. You'll be getting these weekly until we finally finish out this bracket. We're almost halfway. I think next week marks 1 week after we'll be exactly halfway in this series. So we've been doing it. Thank you for following along. I appreciate you guys. I've been Dad Like Book, and I will see you in the next episode of Battle of the Shorts. Thank you.